He survived Everest's deadliest day and went back. Hours into the death zone, near a narrow perch called the balcony, everything changed. What happened to Dr. Roland Yearwood up there wasn't simple, and it wasn't just weather. In the end, he was found near the balcony. The story points to hypoxia and exposure more than any single misstep. To understand the ending, we have to see where the obsession began. He wasn't a thrill-chasing influencer. He was a small-town doctor who stitched cuts, calmed panic, and drove home under the same streetlights as everyone else. In 2015, he stood at Everest Base Camp when the earth groaned, snow broke loose, and chaos rolled through the tents. He lived, many didn't. Back in Alabama, people called him lucky. He didn't talk about luck. He talked about unfinished business. Roland Yearwood trained quietly. Long shifts, longer runs. He studied the route like a surgeon studies scans, camp by camp, hazard by hazard, oxygen plans and backup plans. Friends saw the steady grin, the matter-of-fact tone. No bravado, no chest thumping. Just a promise tucked into everyday life. One more try. The mountain had changed since the quake, and so had he. Surviving base camp sharpened something. Respect, caution, maybe resolve. He wasn't chasing a selfie at the summit. He was chasing a clean line through risk, the kind of problem a careful mind can't stop solving. That mindset carried him back to Nepal in 2017, into a season packed with permits, thin weather windows, and a route every climber swore felt a little different near the top. He knew the odds. He went anyway. Because for some people, the horizon isn't a wall, it's a dare. But that wasn't the whole story. The crowding and timing of that year added a new pressure Roland couldn't control. 2017 wasn't generous. Forecasts kept shrinking the safe window, and hundreds of climbers aimed for the same narrow slice of sky. When a jet stream eases for a day or two, everyone moves at once. That means headlamps in a line, fresh snow kicked into thin air, and every delay magnified at altitude. You don't just wait, you burn time, heat, and oxygen. Permits were high, pressure higher. Teams watched each other like chess players. Leave too early and you fight wind. Leave too late and you join a queue above 8,000 meters where minutes feel like theft. Up there, a pause isn't a pause. It's a drain on the bottle strapped to your mask and a test of whatever reserves you have left. Reports from that season kept warning about fickle gusts and bottlenecks. Even tiny holdups at anchors could stretch into dangerous standstills. And near the top, the route itself had a new mood after the quake. Small changes that only matter when your tank, legs, and brain are all on the edge. Roland knew the math. He wasn't chasing other climbers. He was chasing daylight, calm air, and a clean margin on oxygen. The plan was simple on paper. Move smooth, avoid the clogs, keep the mask flowing, don't linger. But simple plans don't always survive the death zone, and the stretch they call the balcony would make that brutally clear. They left the South Col in the dark, a quiet river of headlamps sliding toward the ridge. The air up there doesn't negotiate. Every step taxes the mind first, then the legs. The route tilts past the triangle face and onto a narrow stance called the balcony, an exposed ledge where climbers swap bottles, check masks, and catch a thin breath that never feels like enough. Roland moved the way he worked back home, steady, methodical, no drama. He knew this stretch, old snow, patches of blue ice, fixed lines that groan when the wind tugs. Above, the ridge steepens toward the south summit. Below, the South Col looks like a faraway landing strip. The balcony is where plans meet reality. It's also where delays multiply. One stuck ascender can stack a dozen people in the cold. Some accounts later put him near that ledge when things turned. Not a misstep, not a scene, just the kind of slow fade the altitude is famous for. Up there, small problems get loud. A hose icing, a regulator misbehaving, a mask seal that isn't perfect. Minutes slip, heat drains, decision-making narrows to the single choice in front of you. Radios crackled, teams were stretched, other incidents were unfolding higher on the ridge, and information felt off by half an hour at best. What's clear is this: As the night pressed on near the balcony, Roland's margin thinned. Whether he was pushing upward or trying to turn, the mountain started asking for more than a human body could pay. But that wasn't the whole story. The confusion that followed would twist the narrative even further. By sunrise, headlines were already racing him down the mountain. Some said he fell near the top. Others said he was found lower, near that narrow perch. Early numbers bounced, details shifted, and a rumor about multiple bodies in a high camp tent flared, then fizzled when veterans pushed back. That's Everest on a busy window. Scattered radios, delayed call-ins, dying batteries, and teams spread across a ridge where every voice sounds like wind. Rescuers were juggling more than one emergency. Another climber was missing on the descent. A second was in trouble after a push in thin air. Helicopters can't just pluck people off the ridge. On-foot teams grind upward, step by step, with the clock eating into their own safety margins. In that noise, even simple facts wobble. So, the narrative twisted. Near the summit, near the balcony, on the way up, on the way down. What held steady was the setting. The death zone, where your margin is smaller than you think and shrinking faster than you feel. Strip away the contradictions and a single pattern remains. Amid those mixed reports, one fact endures. He was found near the balcony, most consistent with a slow failure from hypoxia and exposure, not a fall. At that altitude, the mountain doesn't have to throw a storm to win. It can take you quietly, and what likely happened next explains why even strong climbers lose that fight. Up there, the body runs on debt. Oxygen drops, thinking blurs, and warmth leaks out faster than you can make it. Even with a mask, everything depends on tiny details: flow rate, a clean seal, a bottle that isn't running low. If any of that slips, you don't crash. You fade. First it's pace, then judgment, then the strength to turn around. The balcony is where many climbers try to switch bottles. That sounds simple at sea level. At 8,000 plus, fingers go dumb, clips snag, and minutes stretch. A regulator that hisses the wrong way, a hose that ices, a mask that fogs, each one steals heat and time. Add a cue and you're standing still while altitude keeps climbing inside you. High altitude illness doesn't shout, it whispers. A headache that feels ordinary, a cough that won't clear, a step that used to feel easy now feels glued. Some people get fluid where it shouldn't be. Others drift into a fog and don't notice they're drifting. The cruel part is how normal it can seem right before it isn't. That morning, the simplest explanation fits the harshest facts. Exposure in brutal cold, thin air winning a slow fight, and a margin that vanished before help could matter. He was found near the balcony, and the evidence points to altitude-related complications, rather than a fall. Not a single big mistake, a series of small human moments that added up in the one place that punishes them all. But he wasn't the only one paying for that window, and what unfolded around him would make the picture even harder to read. He wasn't alone in that thin, dangerous slice of time. Another climber vanished after summiting and never made it back to camp. A second collapsed on the descent. A third pushed into air so lean it turns minutes into miles and paid for it before help could catch up. Same window, same ridge, different teams, all feeling the squeeze of cold, wind, and cues that move too slow. Confusion multiplied the risk. Radio handoffs missed details. Summit times didn't line up. A sensational claim about bodies in a high camp tent flashed across headlines, then got walked back when veterans on the ground said the numbers were wrong. That's how it goes on Everest when the window is crowded. Facts lag reality, and stories harden before the truth has oxygen. Whispers added fuel. Some climbers talked about missing oxygen at high camps, gear shifting hands, and bottles not where they were stashed. Maybe it was mix-ups, maybe it was worse. Either way, a missing cylinder at 8,000 meters isn't an inconvenience, it's a countdown. Thread those pieces together, and the weekend looks like a pressure cooker. Too many people in too little weather, small problems stacking into big ones, and rescue stretched thin across a mountain that doesn't bend. Roland's fate was part of that pattern, not an isolated headline. Pull back from the chaos, and a harder question comes into focus. the one that follows every tragedy on Everest. Why do people still go, knowing exactly how this story can end? Back home, Roland wasn't a headline. He was the doctor who lingered in doorways to make sure a patient's breathing settled before he left. Church potlucks, small-town ball games, late-night calls from worried families, he showed up. That steadiness is what he carried to the Himalaya, the belief that careful work, done one step at a time, can fix hard problems. Everest is the one place where that faith meets a ceiling. You can be prepared, humble, disciplined, and still run out of air or luck. His friends remember the quiet confidence, not chest thumping. His patients remember the calm. Climbers remember a guy who didn't make noise in camp, who checked his systems twice and helped with a nod when someone's fingers went numb. That's the legacy that slips past the headlines. A life that didn't need the summit photo to be complete, even if the man himself still wanted the line finished. The bigger debate never sleeps. Crowding, commercialization, teams stacked on thin weather, stashes that go missing at high camps, margins shaved to the bone. Every season restarts the argument. Is the mountain changing, or are we changing it? The answer is probably both. But strip away the noise and you're left with a simple, stubborn truth. People keep going because the pull isn't fame, it's meaning. The mountain offers a brutal kind of clarity. Everything unnecessary falls away, and what's left is the question you've been carrying for years. Roland's story isn't about a single mistake or a single gust. It's about how a careful man met an unforgiving place and gave everything he had to a problem that doesn't always have a human-sized solution. He survived the first time and went back anyway, because unfinished business can be louder than fear. That's not recklessness, it's the human need to close the loop. So, what do we do with that? Maybe we stop pretending Everest is only a postcard or a list item. Maybe we honor the people who go by being honest about the cost. And maybe the real measure isn't a summit shot at all. It's the choice to pursue something that matters, knowing the outcome isn't guaranteed. Everest didn't erase his story, it underlined it. Roland Yearwood chased meaning into air too thin for excuses, and the cost was real. If this left you thinking, tell me, is a summit worth the crowd and the clock, or should the mountain demand a stricter gate? Drop your take below. Tap like if this changed how you see Everest. Hit subscribe for more untold climbs, and share this with someone who thinks mountains are only postcards. The next chapter isn't on the ridge, it's in the reasons we go.